Shalom Saints, this is David, and today I am going to be teaching on the transition of the Roman emperors to the popes of Rome. And I'm trying to give the big picture in some of these trainings. Revelation Timeline Decoded has the studies, which convey a lot of these truths, but sometimes it helps just to step back and see the big picture and to see how the different prophecies in Daniel, in 2 Thessalonians, and Revelation all connect. So that's what we're going to do. I'm just going to be using this simple meme, which I will post a link to. I'll post a link to the study where the meme is at, and you can print that out. But I'm just going to use this meme and that's it, and just talk, because that's how I work better than trying to follow a script or whatever. So first, we start in Daniel. Daniel described the fourth beast. So he did that in Daniel 2. He described the statue, and it had the different metals in it of Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then the iron legs of Rome. And that's the split Roman Empire. And the iron legs, and then the iron clay feet, which points to the popes of Rome, Roman Catholic Church, and then Islam mixed together, carrying out the agenda of the enemy. And then in Daniel 7, the fourth beast of a kingdom is Rome. Still, a lot of people say it's a modern day kingdom of Turkey or whatever, the Ottoman Empire or whatever, but it's the same four kingdoms, and we can prove that out, and you'll see that proved out. And there's a study on my Revelation Timeline Decoded website which proves that out and shows you absolutely that they are the same kingdoms. And so the fourth kingdom is the Roman kingdom, and it's just changed forms over the years. So in Daniel, he talked about the fourth beast kingdom of Rome in civil political terms. So he talked about it using symbols like horns. So the beast had 10 horns, which pointed to the 10 leaders, the 10 horns, of the 10 civil kingdoms, which formed after the Roman Empire fell. So he's saying there's going to be the Roman beast. He described the Roman beast as dreadful and fearful, but it had 10 horns, and those represent when the Roman Empire fell in the 5th century. You'll see that in a second. Then 4 civil kingdoms were formed with 10 kings, and so the 10 horns. And Daniel described a little horn, which is the Pope of Rome, rising to power among those 10 civil kingdoms. And the Pope demanded that they submit to his authority. 3 of the kings said no. So the Pope caused their kingdoms to be plucked out. And that's the narrative right there of Daniel 7. That you'd have 10 horns, and 3 would be, a little horn would rise up. That's the popes of Rome. And that 3 of those kingdoms would be plucked out. Well, that's exactly what happened. And again, the study on my website has all the details, who they are. I'm just giving you the generic version to let you see how the popes of Rome fulfilled prophecy, the prophecy of Daniel, as the little horn of Daniel, which rose up among the 10 civil kingdoms that formed after the Roman Empire fell. Then we go to Paul. So Paul, in 2 Thessalonians, described the Roman beast in ecclesiastic terms. So he's talking not from a political, civil terms, but ecclesiastic. He's talking about the Son of Perdition. And so the disciple of Messiah, Judas, was a son of perdition. So he was part of the assembly. He was part of the disciples. He pretended to be a part of the disciples, but he was really a deceiver. Well, the same story is true about the popes of Rome. The son of perdition, the man of sin, they rose to power after the last Western Roman emperor, who had restrained the popes from taking power, was removed in 476 AD. So as long as the Western Roman emperors were in power, the popes of Rome were there, but they didn't have full control of the Roman Empire. And it wasn't until, so the Western Roman emperors were restraining the popes. Now, Paul couldn't write in 2 Thessalonians that the Roman emperors were restraining the popes from taking power, and that when the emperors were removed from power, the popes would rise to power. He couldn't write that. So that's why he just gave generic terms, but he reminded the Thessalonians of what he said in person to them. And he obviously told them it was the Roman emperor. So once that emperor was removed, then the popes, you'll see here in a second the timeline, but the popes rose to power shortly afterwards. So 2 Thessalonians is pointing to the rise of the popes of Rome. And the popes pretend to be a part of the true church, the temple of God. So when Paul wrote 2 Thessalonians 2, the temple was still standing in Jerusalem. So he wasn't talking about a physical temple. And he used the word naos, which is N-A-O-S, for temple. And that word does not point to a physical temple. It points to the spiritual temple, the true temple, made without hands, the temple of Elohim, that's made without hands. And that temple, who's the cornerstone? It's Messiah. And the disciples are the foundation. And the saints are the little stones which make up the walls. That's the temple of Elohim. So that's where the popes have inserted themselves. They pretend to be a part of the true church. So they pretend to be a leader of the true church. 1.2 billion Catholics right now believe that they're part of the true church, and that actually Protestant churches and other churches are not. And so they think they're the true church, but in all reality, they're teaching a false gospel message of Catholicism, salvation by the sacraments, through the popes of Rome, through Mary as their intercessor, redeemer, all that. And it's a false salvation. So they're not the popes as the leader of the Roman Catholic Church. The Roman Catholic Church is not part of the true church. That's not to say no Catholics are saved, but it's to say the Roman Catholic Church and what they teach, that's not scriptural, and they're not part of the true church. And they're the harlot church of Revelation 17. They're an apostate church, they're a Gentile church, and not part of the true temple. So the popes pretend to be a part of the true church. And in the past, they had proclaimed to be God. So that's what the Son of Perdition was going to do. Enter the temple, pretend to be a part of the true church and proclaim to be God. They proclaim to be Jesus Christ in the flesh. So they are the vicar of Christ, the substitute Christ, which means Antichrist. They proclaim to forgive sins, and they proclaim to provide salvation. All those things are blasphemous, and they're not scriptural. And so the popes of Rome have already fulfilled the role of the Son of Perdition. And so many saints through the years have proclaimed, and I have a study on the website about this, that it gives their testimony, and they've named the popes as the Antichrist beast. They've named the popes as the Son of Perdition. It's already history. It's not future. We're not waiting on a one-man Antichrist. The popes, the opposite of the papacy, the popes of Rome fulfill that. And so the great falling away that happened before the popes rose to power in the 6th century, the falling away happened in the 4th century. And it happened when Emperor Constantine, who arguably is the first pope, changed everything. And he created Roman Christianity, where they changed the holidays. So they moved people away from the scriptural holy feast days of Passover, unleavened bread, first fruits, Pentecost, right? And then to the fall feast of trumpets, atonement, and tabernacles. They moved everybody away from that to Easter, which is based on the fertility goddess Ishtar, right? Easter, and Christmas. And Messiah wasn't born in December. He was born in the fall on the Feast of Tabernacles, because he came to dwell amongst us. So they moved us away from the true faith, from scriptural faith, to a false one. And sadly, it's not just Roman Catholics who follow these teachings, but it's many Christians today who still follow the teachings of Rome. So when Messiah says, come out of Babylon, he's telling you to come out of the teachings of Rome. And that's just a whole nother study, but the falling away already happened in the 4th century. And it's so far removed, we don't realize what happened. But everything was changed. And now there's a remnant of people who are returning to the true faith, of the true feast, observing the feast days, knowing the scriptural calendar and all that. But most Christians would call them heretics, but they're simply returning to the narrow way of Scripture. So the Apostle John described the leader of the Roman beast in both ecclesiastic and civil terms. So you had Daniel, who talked in civil terms. You had Paul, who talked in ecclesiastic terms. And then John combines those together. And he points to the popes of Rome as the leader of church and state. And the initial leader was the emperors. So they were Pontifex Maximus. They were the leader of church and state. And so he's pointing to them in the transition from the emperors to the popes of Rome. And the emperors ruled. While John wrote Revelation, the emperors were in power. So they were the sixth Adam, we'll get to that in a second, of Revelation 17, they were in power. And during the seal judgments, led to the decline of the Roman Empire. The trumpet judgments brought army after army against the Roman Empire, because it was their judgment. It was our Father's judgment against them, because Satan had used the Roman emperors to try to wipe out the early church, and they killed 10 million saints. And the blood of the saints cried out for vengeance, cried out for the Father to exact vengeance, and that's exactly what he did during the seal judgments, which led to the decline from civil wars, famine, pestilence, where 1/4 of the Romans died. And then the trumpet judgments, where army after army came against them. And it was in the fourth trumpet that represents the Western Roman Emperor, which is symbolically represented by the Son. He's the leader. He's the Son, being removed from power. And that was the deadly headwind. So the head of the Roman Empire was removed from power. That is the deadly headwind that John's talking about. And you'll see that played out in a second. So John's saying, he's pointing, giving you the narrative of the Roman Empire and the emperors being used to persecute the saints, which is described in Revelation 12. And then he's describing the popes of Rome rising to power out of the fallen Roman Empire, just like Daniel did. So let me scroll up a little bit. So Revelation 13 describes the Antichrist beats popes of Rome rising to power out of a sea of people. The sea means a bunch of different people. So the 10 kingdoms of the fallen Roman Empire. And they spoke different languages and dialects. And so he rose to power. Again, remember we just talked about Daniel where he rose to power over the 10 civil kingdoms. And they all spoke, there was different languages, different peoples, but he demanded that they bow to his authority. So he rose to power out of the fallen Roman Empire. And in 538, the popes were given authority. And they took the emperor's title of Pontifex Maximus, and that was the healing of the deadly head wound. So the healing of the deadly head wound happened early, right, in the career, we'll say, of the office of the papacy, not at the end. Not when they were removed in 1798. That's not the healing of the deadly head wound that John was talking about. He was pointing to the fact that the Roman emperors were removed from power in 476, and then shortly afterwards in 538, the popes were given the same authority. And they took the emperor's title, they took his place as leader of church and state. And they ruled for 1260 years. So when Daniel points to 1260 days, when John points to 1260 days, in this case, the 1 day equals 1 year applies to this prophecy, so it's 1260 years. So from 538 to 1798 AD, the popes of Rome were empowered, and they caused over 50 million saints to be killed. So Daniel tells you the story of the little horn who's going to rise to power. He's going to persecute the saints, right? And Paul talks about the saints being persecuted, and John talks about the saints being persecuted. Well, that's exactly what the popes of Rome did. They caused over 50 million saints to be killed, who they considered heretics, who have the audacity to actually follow and cite the scriptures versus following the teachings of a man, and that one obviously is the popes. And then the last part, Revelation 17, John describes the harlot Roman Catholic Church. So he's describing them with the scarlet and the purple, which are the official colors of the cardinals and bishops. He describes them with the cup, the golden cup of abominations. Well, that's their Eucharist ceremony that they do with the golden cup, where they're carrying out the symbolism of the Babylonian mystery religion. They're combining the sun god, right, in the wafer, and this, the moon goddess, and symbolizing the birth of Tammuz, the incarnate sun god. So on the veneer is that they're representing Messiah, right? But the truth is they're carrying out the Babylonian mysteries of their sun god worship. And so John's describing the harlot Roman Catholic Church and the popes of Rome rising to power out of the 7 previous forms of government. So when he says 5 have fallen, and one is to come for a short time, and then the 8th king, he's just being told by the angel who's giving him clarification, because I'm sure it was hard for John to comprehend. 5 forms of the Roman government had already passed. The 6th was the emperors, so they were in power when John wrote Revelation. The 7th lasted a short time, from 476, when the last Western Roman emperor was taken captive and removed from power, to 538, and then the popes of Rome were empowered, so that's a short time, from 476 to 538. Then the 8th king, the popes of Rome, took power, and they led the harlot Roman Catholic Church called Mystery Babylon the Great, because it's based on the Babylonian mystery religion. And when he says, the beast that was and is not and will be, is really referring to the beast of Babylon. So he's pointing back to the original beast of Babylon, where, they tried to create a one world order, if you will, and they had the Babylonian religion. And that's the first beast. And then when John wrote it, it was not, because Babylon wasn't around. But in the Roman Catholic Church, the popes of Rome lead the Roman Catholic Church, which is based on the Babylonian mystery religion. And what are they trying to do? Create a one world government, right? Where they worship the sun god and the moon goddess and everything else. So when he says, those words, who it was, is not, and will be, he's just pointing to the recreation, if you will, of the Babylonian Empire in the Roman Catholic Church. So there's a whole study, and I'll provide a link to that in the comments, that goes through this, and it shows how prophecy points to the office of the papacy, the popes of Rome. But this I just wanted to go over this to try to give you the big picture, to just show you that Daniel and Paul and John were all pointing to the popes of Rome rising out of the fallen Roman Empire. So none of those prophecies, right, that I just went through, so Daniel, 2 Thessalonians, Revelation 13, the trumpet judgments, Revelation 17, none of that is really future. Okay? It's already been played out during the last 1900 years since Revelation was written, and so it's not future. Most of Revelation, there's a summary study on the website, it will show you that most of Revelation has already been fulfilled during the last 1900 years. And there's not much left to be fulfilled until Messiah returns. And I'll provide a link for that study too. But hopefully this just gives you a big picture, helps you see the big picture of how everything connects, how they were talking about the same thing. They just described it in different terms, but they're all talking about the Satan-empowered Roman beast, which has changed forms over the years from the Roman emperors, which Satan used to kill 10 million saints, to the Roman popes, who Satan used to try to wipe out the scriptures and the saints, the 2 witnesses against them, killing over 10 million saints. And today, and there's a lesson on there, but today the Jesuit general controls the Vatican. And you know what? In the one world government, when that forms, no doubt they're going to try to wipe out the saints again. And so it's a simple narrative. It's just the Roman beast. It's always the Roman beast. And the Roman beast will be destroyed when Messiah returns. But all of prophecy is pointing to Rome. It's, Islam is involved, and there's a study about that, how they're involved. But the foundation, the pinnacle of the evil one's power pyramid is based in Rome. Through the emperors, through the popes, through the Jesuit generals, it all points to Rome. So hopefully this helped you see the big picture. If you've liked this video and the message, please click on the thumbs up. Please share it on Facebook so others can see the truth. I pray that Elohim helps you continue to find truth, and go to the website, Revelation Timeline Decoded.com, to read the studies with the verse by verse explanations. May Yahuwah bless you. Bye.